Ready to go, John? Okay, I was again inattentive here. I got to pay attention to what's going on in the studio. Very glad to see you out there. We got to wake up around here, and okay, pay more attention. Um, I'm glad to see you out there again, and thank you for tuning in. The program called "What's Going On" here at allpointstv.com, and see all the cameras up and running. Everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing at their station. I'm the only one that's lagging behind. So I got to talk twice as fast to catch up. Okay, we're back again, and we're going to be doing another hour here, starting as close as we can at 2 o'clock, and we end at 3. And we are here Mondays, in the afternoon Mondays. And we are reaching out to a lot of different sites. I want to thank the camera people because the feeds we have here, I see a camera over here and I see the one there. And this one right here has a split so that it goes in 4 different directions and it feeds into 4 different sites. We got so many cameras in here right now that I have to see where the lights are so I can know where to put my attention. So much is going on here that wasn't going on when I first started. I've been here now a dozen years and looks like they're not throwing me out, so that's a good thing. And looks like I'm going to be here for the long run. Some people you have to carry out, and you give them the flowers and carry them out of here. They don't leave on their own. I'm one of those persons that believe in turning the lights out. And so like I'm going to be here for a while longer. Today, I want to, in a way, continue some things, but also start another conversation as well. It is just so much going on in the political arena that you really cannot cover all the topics that are going on because things are moving so fast. And there are so many things taking place that need some balance to them that I always feel like I'm lagging behind by doing a program once a week. And there are those like some of my peers, well, not my peers, but some of the ones that's also in the media. I don't have any peers. That's my view. I listen to what they say, and I don't see any peers out there. But they're on TV 5 days a week. Some of them on TV all Monday through Friday, and we come in Monday and do a program. And by the time we get back together again the following Monday, there's so much that's been going on that you're doing catch up, and we don't plan to do a program every day because of other commitments we have. But there's so much going on we have to respond to. And I see a lot of it because people just think they can say anything. People think they can say just anything. and you're supposed to accept what they're saying without comment. And most persons, what I'm finding out is that if you have a degree, these higher degrees, which I consider those degrees now to be licenses to lie, you can say anything and get away with it because they feel that if you have a degree and all of that and you have from a prestigious university, then you're not speaking anything but the truth. But some of the biggest liars, I'm assuming they're lying because a lot of things they're saying I know is wrong. So if you're well trained at these prestigious colleges and universities, then it has to be a matter of lying because a lot of what they're saying is not true. And I would invite all the scholars out there that disagree with me to read my post today on Facebook and let me know your comments. And I called some names out because I am determined to flush some people out because they want to act like I'm not out here and they don't want to acknowledge what I'm writing. I just call their name out so they know I'm writing it based on comments they made. And their silence is an indictment as far as I'm concerned, because when you mention my name and you're saying that what I'm writing or what I'm saying is not accurate, I don't care who you are, I'm going to respond to it. And if you're right, I'm willing to admit to that. But if you're wrong, I'm going to challenge you on it. But I don't think you're going to be right. I do claim that my training is better than their training, based on based on what I'm hearing out here. And I'm hearing a lot of things that I can tell you right now that wherever that training came from, and if there's a degree that came with it, they need to give it back.
Just goes to show you that back when I was at U of M, we had a chancellor that wanted to cut the library budget because the department I worked with was underneath the jurisdiction of the library, and his rationale was because everything's going to be on the internet soon, so we'll just depend on that. And what it was, the reason I'm bringing this up, once something becomes taught at an institution like Princeton, Harvard, or Yale, it becomes like the de facto, even though it's totally an error of the original documents, it's basically a lie often repeated often enough, it becomes the reality.
Yeah.
And people don't understand. That's the reason why I prefer books, because if somebody took the time to do the research and put it in a book and committed themselves, what I don't like about online things is they're going to just have somebody just go into it and change it within overnight.
Yeah,
and that's what the reason I'm bringing this up is like there's people like your friend Dershowitz, because he's got the name brand after him. And see, everybody wants to they almost create this idol when it comes to higher institutions of higher education. Well, being on the ground for better part of my adult life around education institutions, higher education, I can tell you these people are basically just regurgitators.
Yeah,
and that's what happens.
That you made that point, along with the other points you're making, right on time. They are basically parrots, and you have to ask for the documentation of the things they're saying. And when they get into the Constitution, where my training is pretty much housed in that. I have a history background, economics background as well, but when you start talking about the Constitution, I don't take a back seat to anyone when it comes to that, because I listen to what they're saying about it. I go on their sites and listen to what they're saying about it, and I object to what's being said primarily because I know what they're saying is not true, and I don't know where their training comes from. I can tell you where mine comes from, but wherever their training is coming from, they're saying things like they're saying. And I'll mention some of the names of these people. I'm talking about Alan Dershowitz. And I'm talking about Lawrence Tribe. These are supposed to be the heavyweights from Harvard University. Both are emeritus right now, having retired from the university, but they have a chair sitting there because of their status when they were once institutions inside of the institution of the university. And when you're an emeritus, they have a chair. I don't have a chair except the one I'm sitting in, nor do I want a chair other than the one I'm sitting in. I can't use a chair that's not being used. I want anybody draping something over a chair and saving it for me so when I come back, I can sit in it. Chairs are made to be sat in, and I don't need somebody having a chair with my name on it and nobody sitting in it. Doesn't make any sense to me. But when I listen to the ones that have these emeritus statuses, it's amazing to me when I listen to what they're saying. And I'll be very specific in it. I noticed, for example, Alan Dershowitz criticizes Lawrence Tribe. They have an animosity between them. Some of it maybe be the competitiveness of it. And Alan Dershowitz accuses Lawrence Tribe of injecting his biases into his interpretation of the Constitution, and that may well be true. I don't say necessarily that Dershowitz injects his bias into his interpretation. What he does is inject his lack of understanding of it into his interpretation. And when you start talking about the second article and place its meanings in as if it's in the first article and claim that is primary to the impeachment process when the process has already occurred before it gets to Article 2. Let me make that point. by the time the impeachment process enters into that which is suborned in the second article, the process of impeachment has already occurred. Isn't that true? Do you do you agree with that, Alan?
By the way, Steve Myers sent me a link to another news service out of Australia, and you might be interested in this, and I bring it up because it's a connection to the impeachment process. It's understood by this news source in Australia. I think it's called Sky News. That Joe Biden has actually got himself a lawyer to actually try to combat what he sees as going to be an impeachment attempt on him very soon. And so that's not covered, though. Have you heard about this in the major press in the United States?
No, it's not going to be covered because the media is an outlet for the Democratic Party. And you don't hear a lot of things because it goes against the grain of what the Democratic Party is trying to project as the reality. They're not going to contravene that and say something that's different from that. But I would not be surprised that he is right now taking measures to countervene and put countermeasures in place to circumvent that, because they're definitely coming after him once the November election takes place. The tsunami that takes place is on the horizon, because there's no doubt that the American people are coming after the Democratic Party with all the damage they've done to the country. And the people are up in arms about things they can see. They don't see all of it. They don't understand everything that's going on. But what they do understand is that their budget has been torpedoed by the Biden administration policies, and they see that torpedoing every time they go to the store, go to the gas pump. And you can make all these claims you want to about this nonsense that they're putting across, that these are Putin's price hikes. And you can say there's other nonsense, that these prices caused by inflation these are transitory. That's a new word they're using, and they all use it once it gets out there. Then everybody says the same. You can tell it's been coordinated because everyone uses the same terminology. Powell, the present chair of the Federal Reserve System, the former chair was Janet Yellen, now the Treasury Secretary for the Biden administration. She didn't know anything when she was the Fed, head of the Fed, and she doesn't know anything now about economics. And that's why she's saying the things she's saying right now. You have to be a fool to say the thing that these people are saying. Jerome Powell saying that inflation is transitory. They actually said that.
But don't recede. That's a problem. It's ratcheted. Okay, once it's positioned,
Yeah,
it's not going to be a lot. And when we ratchet something down, it doesn't go back, slide back up. It's ratcheted
right.
down. Yeah,
John, you understand this, but they're not talking to people like yourself. They're talking to the ones out there that have not yet awakened that when these people are moving their lips, then you should be on guard for the mistruths that are coming out of their mouths, because they're not speaking the truth, nor are they interested in even telling it. And this idea, this latest lie, the latest assault, I look at it as an intellectual assault upon the consciousness and thinking of the American people by telling them such outrageous nonsense that inflation, which is caused by the expansion of the currency. And I'll say this too. One of my degrees is in economics. Let me say this. And nobody's made this point, although I do have some respect for people like Peter Schiff and others. I have a lot of respect for him. I don't have any respect for Paul Krugman. I want you to know that, Paul Krugman, you don't even know what you're talking about. And I don't know how you got I don't know how you got a Nobel Peace Prize
I don't know why.
in economics.
Well, I don't know why we listen to academics about economics, because I like to quip that somebody said a academic, academic could take a look at a thriving economy and would wonder if it would work in theory. Well,
they can say it in academia because there's never any accountability for getting it wrong. I mean, particularly once you get tenure, and then what can be done for the things you throw out there. But most of what they talk about is wrong. And anyone that has not caught them at that is because they're not trained, and that's what they depend upon. That's why I was saying earlier that what John is saying, they're not speaking to people like John that has information to, in fact, inject his own understanding of what they're saying. They're talking to a person where there's a vacuum of understanding, and they're speaking to that vacuum and act as if they're experts in what they're saying. And they speak so. Another thing they do, they speak so authoritatively. Very few R's and N's, and you seemingly out of the authoritative voice, people just take it that they are saying that which has been tutored, and they know what they're talking about. And those that have not done the study don't catch them at it. They depend upon that.
Well, George McGovern, known for his hostility towards businesses, after he left politics, he went into business, and he realized a lot of his policies and that which he advocated made it so much difficult for business people and businesses to thrive. Mm-hmm. He actually expressed some regret at that.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the movie Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield, the man who was self-made millionaire. Mm-hmm. And he was in back taking classes in college to be near his son, and he was in an economics class. And the economics professor was trying to, how to start a business, telling the class how to start a business. And he was interrupting and saying, right. No, you do this. Did you ever see the movie? And it was like, he's like, this guy's actually got practical, rubber meets the road, practical experience. Right. And they cut this guy sitting in a suit lecturing from the class.
Yeah.
Didn't know crap.
Right. John, that's a very good analogy. That was a classic to make that point. And the other class that he went to was the one taught by Sam Kennison.
That teacher, the history teacher.
The history teacher. that was also a classic where they had one student in the classroom. He had asked about the Vietnam War, and she was giving a straight out of the book answer. And Kennison says, through the character he was playing, says, "He right?" Because he get ready to go off on her. And he then goes in, how Kennison was. He was one of those guys that would do the arc, kind of thing. And
hyperkinetic.
Yeah, hyperkinetic. And screaming and all that. Part of his act. And he was classic in that role. And he went off on her and talked about how I could believe that. But I was out in the writer's farm. He goes off talking about his experience in Vietnam and talks about how you in the classroom and blah, blah, experience. And that's the way it is. And they depend upon that in order to get across what they're trying to say and get it to be accepted. That's the main thing, to get it accepted, whether it has any credence or not. Most of what they say doesn't have any credence. And I'm coming behind them to tell them and call their names out. And their silence, to me, is an indictment against them. Because I call them out by name, as I did today in my post. But I was saying here that this idea that inflation is transitory. Let me tell you something. And nobody said this, but when you leave the store and you go back the following week, those prices have increased again. I'll tell you why it's increased. The reason why the price is increasing, well, let me make this point first. During the Weimar Republic, as an example of that, they were paying people by the hour. And once they worked that hour, they give them their money immediately, and they'd run out from their job and then go out and buy something, because by the time they got back on their job, the money they got paid had been devalued in terms of spending power, because the acceleration of the inflation would have continued on the way to and fro the purchasing with the money they got paid. Now, why would that be the case? It's because, and it contradicts this idea that inflation is transitory. It's because as you are sitting here with the expansion of the currency by them doing what they did, put $7 trillion more paper dollars into the mainstream, the bloodstream of the country's economy, pump $7 trillion more into it, that has no effect. But what happens is that after they've done that, and that's expansion of the currency continues to expand because of the interest on the dollars. So the dollars continue to be weakened by the acceleration of the interest rate. Look at that as a possibility, you economists. So that's why you during the Weimar Republic, they had already created an expansion of the currency, but the tumbling effect, you don't have to continue to get the inflation to continue to expand. It will expand on its own because it creates a life of its own, because the currency out there borrowed in, don't forget, all currency that is in existence from the central bank is borrowed into existence with interest. And the fact that the interest is never born into existence, that's why it's ridiculous to be talking, by the way, about paying off the deficit. You can't pay it off. There's not ever enough money, enough currency in circulation to pay it off, because the currency is borrowed into existence, but the interest is not borrowed into existence. So there's never enough currency in circulation to pay off the principal, which is the borrowing of the currency, and the interest on the borrowing of the currency.
That's the quickest summation I've ever had. Somebody go and the prolong. That's very succinct.
Yeah, they don't understand it, John. I don't take a back seat to the training. I just when I get this book finished, and that I'm going to say some things here as I'm doing in my post, as I did in my post today. Nobody's saying what I'm saying. Nobody in the country is saying it. And what I said today, calling names out, I call the names out. I want them to know they're not qualified to say anything. And they're not going to say anything because what they're going to say, that George Moss, you're wrong because I can tell you this, and this is, and I can tell you where it's located. And you said this about the Constitution is not there. I mean, nobody told me about her. The way she lied. You know that song, let me tell you about, I should have known. That's a song. But the information is there. Maybe she's not there.
But the other thing is
But the information I'm talking about is there, and I can point to where it's located.
See, a lot of people, you're going to have a lot of first-time viewers because we're up on Rumble. And let us explain a little bit. Your background, your undergrad degree is, one of your undergrad degrees is in economics, right?
Yes, yeah. John. When I came out of undergrad, my first undergrad degree, the average number of degrees, the average number of hours you needed was 124 for the bachelor's degree. I had 141. So I had what amounted to 2 semesters above what was really required for the degrees, for the first degree. Now, on the way to the second degree, I went to all of the major universities, all of the major ones in the state of Michigan before getting the second degree. Ended up getting it at Eastern and stayed there for my doctorate degree. But I will tell you this, that before that and getting the other degrees, there were a lot of interim classes I took on the way to those degrees. And that's why I call the names out, because I'm better trained than they are. They may have gone right through and gotten the degrees. I had interim things I wanted to learn and study on the way to those degrees. So that was always an interim period for me. And I don't think anybody in the country is better trained. They might have come out of more prestigious universities than I did. And I mean, it's not that the University of Wayne is not a prestigious university. It doesn't get the play that the other universities get, because you have to have an endowment. That's what it really was about. It's an endowment. You got to have billions of dollars in endowment, and if your endowment not big enough, because your graduates have not gone on to these, prestigious firms and that, because they take these firms take these people that have these credentials. They want to be able to say they have this person, that person on board. and they have these large salaries. So the endowment is different.
But I'm going to interject here too.
But they're not better trained than I am.
I was going to say, see, this woman, my friend used to date this woman. She was a practicing attorney down in Chicago, Illinois, but she was from Michigan. She passed the bar exam both of Michigan and Illinois, so she could practice law in either state. And she made this thing a startling revelation to me one time. She went to University of Detroit, law school, U of D.
Mhm.
Anyway, it turns out they had the students from there had a better time, quick pass the bar exam on their first attempt more often than people who graduate from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, which is considered like the top 10,
right?
Law schools. And she was practical. She knew all the practical down to earth stuff. She worked in a corporation. She worked in a firm, a law firm that actually did this countersuing for people who brought like liability, lawsuits against businesses and stuff. She was the one that, defended the businesses. But she knew both sides of it because she had done the other side of it. But she passed the bar exam for both Illinois and Michigan on her first attempt.
Yeah. Well, when you're Avis and you're not Hertz, you're number 2 and not number 1. You have to do what Du Bois, the great W.B. Du Bois, said when he was talking about a race that is behind. He was, Du Bois was born on the other side, unlike Booker T. Washington was born on the other side of slavery. He didn't taste the sting of the lash like Booker T. Washington did. So his understanding of things was a little bit different. Wasn't better, just a little bit different. And he made the statement that a race that's behind must forever remain behind unless it runs twice as fast as the races in front. And it's like that in terms of the competitiveness in these universities and colleges. When you're not rated number 1, and I'm a product of that also in terms of the segregated schools in the South. You have to be prepared, because the disadvantage is already born into the process, because you don't start at the level of prestige of the other universities. And I would also make this point. That is a point that the late, great Dr. Walter E. Williams, from who was a professor he was a professor before his death at Georgetown University. And his point he made is that he would tell his he would be hard on the students, and some of the black students thought that they should have gotten some dap, as they call it. Wink, wink, and where's my affirmative action points kind of thing. He wasn't buying that, nor should he. And I ran into that when I was at the university as well. People thought that you're gonna give them a little dap. I didn't give them anything. Nobody gave me any dap, and I'm glad they didn't. They made me go to the library and get my own dap. But what he would tell the students was that they had to get out there and get it. So some of the black students objected to how hard he was on them. And he told them, he said, okay, he said, they said, you're harder on us than you are seemingly than the white students, which was not true, but he wasn't giving not cutting them any slack. And his point was, the other students in the classroom know somebody who daddy knows somebody. And he asked them, who does your daddy know? And that ends that conversation. My daddy didn't know anybody in positions of influence. And I knew I couldn't go to him and ask him to cut me some slack with somebody that he knew. I had to get it for myself. And that's what my teachers told me. I heard that for 12 years. What I heard for 12 years was, you got to be twice as good. I heard that in every class. Particularly when we were in the classroom sloughing off and playing around and not being attentive and things like that. I heard this also. I got mine and you got yours to get. That was constantly being drilled into the classroom. They need to say that some more in these classes today. but they're too busy teaching critical race theory and telling children how to change their gender. That's before, this is out in the aftermath of teaching reading, writing, and counting, which they don't even teach that anymore. Teaching about how to transition from one gender, the gender you're born in, you can transition to that, to some other gender. Anyone that's teaching that in the classroom ought to be fired like tomorrow. I'm just saying. But this, I see, you can say that to a lot of people. Inflation is transitory. You can say that, Powell and Janet Yellen, to a lot of people, but you cannot say that to me. Because I'm better trained than you are. And I have to fight to keep from cursing these people out. I'm not a profane person, but they drive me to the edge of it, saying the things they're saying. How is inflation going to be transitory and you keep dumping paper into the country's economic stream, and you're so illiterate, economically illiterate, you think that dumping more and more paper into the currency stream doesn't have any effect, when the effect is immediate. Every dollar, and we're talking about $7 trillion that were dumped into the currency stream of the country. Every dollar of that has a weakening effect of the dollars already in circulation. In other words, the buying power of the dollar is weakened by the dollars you're throwing out there that are worthless, and therefore it makes the other dollars that were worthless on that level worthless on a whole different level. That's why the weakening effect occurs. And then the interest, which doesn't exist, but is accelerating. Let me say this about that. The acceleration of that is what you see on those counters that you see. They sometimes will put a counter up there. Those numbers that's going up like that starts off in the cent column, then in the tens column, and then in the one column, units, tens, hundreds, and so on. And when it keeps going up, it's going up fast over here, not as fast over there, not as fast here, but going at a rate in all the columns, which is frightening. But why does that go on? Because the currency's inflation, the fact the currency exists is creating inflation. See, there's inflation in the placement of the currency in the nation's bloodstream. I want to say economic stream, but let's say bloodstream. The bloodstream being, in this case, the paper, and then the continued effect of that in existence. The only way you can actually get the inflation to be transitory, Janet Yellen, you and Jerome Powell, is take the currency back out, which would have a lessening of the effect of those numbers going up on that little chart you see that they put on there every once in a while. They put it on television, but they don't put it on there too much because they understand how frightening it is for you to watch those numbers going up like that. But you understand why those numbers are going up, and they're going up right now, whether you put it on television or not. Although they think they believe that you think that if it's not on TV where those numbers are doing that you're saying that the thinking is out of sight, out of mind, and therefore the acceleration of the worthlessness of the currency, the purchasing power being taken out of the currency, stops when that counting is not put before the public. That stuff goes on. It's accelerating by just sitting there. There was one I'll give you an example. I went to the store a couple of months ago. I had charged on my store bill. I have a credit card from the store, and I had about $700 on that bill. When I went there to pay it off, the guy behind the counter saw me pay the whole bill off, and he said, "You know, I should do that." And so I was telling him why he should do it. But what he was doing was what they hope he would do. You know, let let the debt sit there like a dumbbell. You know why that's a dumbbell? Because here's the debt sitting there, where when you borrow when I spent the money on the credit card, the credit card that put that the spending I put on the credit card was doing something. How do I know it was doing something? Because I put on the credit card and walked out with the product. Now, can you tell me why it makes any sense? Now, I'm waiting for the answer because I don't have it, because I only came from Wayne State University, so I don't have the answer. So why would I let the debt sit there, not doing anything, but drawing interest when there's no benefit to me for it to do that? Tell me why I would do that. Well, I don't do it. See, I understand the mindset of the credit company, and they understand that you don't understand their mindset. I understand their mindset too. I understand their mindset. You don't see when they say what's in your wallet, and you think you're being deprived if you don't get the Capital One credit card. That's what they're advertising. And ask you what's in your wallet. I tell you what's in your wallet: debt. That's what's in your wallet.
But you know, my friend that makes the point, he said he heard this conversation about a guy who ran a credit card. You know, he worked for the credit card companies, and people like you that pay for the, you know, at the end of the month, the cycle,
right.
They call you guys deadbeats because they don't get money off you. That 19, 25, 29% interest.
Yeah.
You're deadbeats.
Right,
them,
because I don't let them exploit me. I'm a deadbeat, but I'm a deadbeat in my own favor. I don't mind being. I'm not against. I'm against deadbeats. If you're a deadbeat, and that is a factor in terms of owning up to responsibility that you have. But I have no responsibility of paying interest on something when I can avoid that. I don't want to be I want to be a deadbeat if the deadbeat does not injure my responsibility. And by paying it off, they want to call it a deadbeat. What it really is that you are understanding how debt is to be used. You see what they're doing, like this $40 billion that these absolute fools who are running this country, $40 billion they just made up out of thin air, created, expanded the currency by another $40 billion, and sent it over there for weapons in Ukraine, rather than pursuing peace. I will tell you this too. This is something that I'll make this on the QT and running. The report that came out just before I came to the studio today is that Sweden and Finland and Sweden are both now announcing they intend to join NATO. I can tell you what that's about. See, I can say it from a mile away what that's about. There's been some back-channeling discussions going on, and they're trying to bring Russia out more into a war posture. And Russia did what Trump did when they stole the election in 2020, trying to provoke him into a move that would have played into their hands. What Russia did was to announce that is not a problem as long as they do not militarize Finland and Sweden. But don't forget, that's on Russia's border. And you have to ask yourself a question here: what is NATO doing over there? Well, these are provocative acts, but $40 billion. They don't have $40 billion over the taxes that they are collecting. So where did it come from? They made it out. They made it up out of thin air, and they got it from the Federal Reserve. And when the $40 billion was borrowed into existence, without the interest being borrowed into existence, then the debt on that borrowing has to be paid in addition to all the other debt that they borrowed. They want to act like China's loaning them money. How's China loaning you any money? They want to act like they're getting it from Japan. Where's Japan getting the money loaning anybody from? This money is borrowed from our children. They're taking the prosperity out of the country's future. Is that Paul Krugman? You agree with that? I called their names out. They're not going to say anything. They're going to remain. They have the right to remain silent, and I guarantee you that they will remain silent. I'm on the same. I found out by watching Alan Dershowitz program that we're on the same channel, and I was watching his program the other day, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. But he doesn't. He's not making these comments for people like myself. One of the comments he made is that if he was writing the Constitution, he would not have included in it the Second Amendment, nor would he have included one of the Article 2 provisions, which was the Electoral College. And that is astounding to me. I don't know which one is more egregious in terms of how astounding the comments are being made, but both of them are alarming. I'm glad he wasn't there. But it shows me he doesn't understand the reason why the framers came up with that particular formula they came up with, particularly the Electoral College, which is a brilliant answer to what they had in Federalist Paper 10, which was the first of the Federalist Papers written by James Madison. 9 was written by Alexander Hamilton that started the conversation about what do you do with factions. Both of them understanding, both Hamilton and Madison understanding the danger of factions. The most dangerous of which, by I get this point, the most dangerous of which is the majority faction. And I'll make this side point on the QTN running on this point, which is why I think that what the Supreme Court is talking about doing through the leaked report, the draft by Souter, by Samuel Alito, I think that draft is going to be determinative in terms of what the court decides in the final analysis, to allow each state to vote upon whether or not children can be born in the state by a majority vote. That's a cop-out. Maybe you think that the framers intended the majority voice to prevail. And if you think that, then go read Article 10. Not Article 10. Federalist Paper 10. Go read it. Start with 9 and then read 10. 9 written by Hamilton to open up the question of the problem of factions, and 10 finishing off the discussion by having a way of dealing with factions, the most dangerous, which is the majority faction, particularly a single majority, because a majority is dangerous to the minority, because if it rules the roost, then the majority can oppress the minority. But if you in fact come down with power upon the majority, then you're oppressing the majority. So how do you then come up and break the impasse? They broke the impasse, Alan Dershowitz, by creating additional majorities. Just like you fight fire with fire, and you fight fire with fire by running ahead of the fire and burning the grass ahead of it. So when it gets there, there's nothing to burn. The fire burns itself out. You fight fire with fire. You fight majorities. And they created 50 majorities that's got to be contended with before you get a majority of the vote in the final population determining the president of the United States. You show me who you know that has that brilliance to come up with that particular scheme in the history of the planet Earth. And I understand it. And Alan Dershowitz, you would not have said what you said if you understood it. You don't even understand why the Second Amendment was placed in the Constitution behind Article 1, which is part of what you call Bill of Rights, where I'm claiming there is no Bill of Rights in the Constitution. There's only restraints. Because the Constitution is a prohibition against government. It demands that government seek its request for acting. The Constitution demands that government seek permission to act. Of course, you know what politicians are about. They think they ought to be permission from them in orders. That's the problem that they have in terms of why Biden was saying the other day that no amendment is absolute. If I'm on the committee and we're in the majority, you can bet one thing, I would be putting an impeachment verdict, not a verdict, but impeachment charge against you based upon that, because that brings you out of the work as a one and a hidden tyrant, because a tyrant say that something in the Constitution not being absolute. That man actually said it before the public of the United States, and he's right about the fact that once the majority, which is certain in the House, is in the hands of the House of Representatives in November, they're coming after him, just as it was a certainty that once the majority in the House was in the hands of the Democratic Party, they were coming after Trump. And they knew that's why the Republican Party didn't like him either. That's what they did. You didn't see they stepped aside. I saw it, and I'm telling you, that's what they did. They stepped aside. 37 of them, between 37 and 39 of them, did not seek re-election in the House of Representatives in 2018. And of that 37 to 39 that didn't seek re-election, 26 of them didn't run for any other office. Have you ever seen a politician willing to step down from power? Why did 37 to 39 of them step down at one time in 2018? Why? Because they exposed Donald Trump to impeachment, which they supported. Some more out and open the doorway in back of it, because they had a club up there in Washington. That book to the studio, by the way, called Throw Them All Out by Peter Schweizer. Who's the first book I read by him was a book called Architects or Ruin, R-U-I-N. I guess you would call it ruins. That's who they are. Everything these politicians touch, they ruin. There are very few exceptions because they don't have any experience for the most part. I would say 99 and 9/10% of them don't have any marketing experience. The reason why Marjorie Taylor Greene is there, she ran some before she got there. The rest of them ran some too before they got there, which was running their mouths. That's instead of them running anything. They're good at that. When they get through, if you notice, when they get through with their tenure, in Congress, either because they decided to terminate, to get old and all of that, or maybe out, or they take it anymore, like some of the personnel on Fox. And they go, and then they start going somewhere else to talk. Look on MSNBC, a whole herd of them over there. People that was in the intelligence community. Clapper, and that's what is where they can continue to talk, because that's what they're good at. They don't other than their mouths, and most of them don't know anything. And you're wasting your time listening to these people as if they're experts in anything. When the politicians start talking, like okay, Court, what does she know?
You know something about like Mary?
I'm not talking the bartender profession, but don't get up there on tables and serving drinks and know how to make. I don't agree. Okay, I don't know. 7 and 7. Okay, I know that's 7 Up and what vodka. I don't know. I don't do alcohol. Policy goes haywire, which is all the time, held to account. They can always go into the budget and just spend over the problem and then charge it to the put on the credit card of the nation. They be that's unforgivable. That's what they do and get away with it because the pain. You see, it's the other thing about unlike the doctors bury their mistakes in the cemetery, you can't bury the mistakes of the politicians in the cemetery. When they bury when they bury their problems, the problem they create, they bury it in the future, which is yet to get here. So therefore, you don't see the effect, see some of it in terms of the on their watch, or they hope it will not collapse on their watch. But if that's about that, but that if particularly the decides the dollar as an exchange, that may well happen if we can the dollar because there's no to maintain it. The dollar is not as a currency exchange in the first place because of the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944. At the end of the Second World War, where everybody agreed in the Allied nations, 44 of them, within 790 delegates to the Bretton in New Hampshire, and they agreed at that time. The war came to a close. The economies had been decimated, and the strongest economy that was there, they're still standing on the Allied side, was one of the United States, not England. And therefore, they would use the dollar as a backup currency, and as long as the dollar would be fixed at a certain rate in terms of the value of the dollar, and that was the rate of moving for $20 and $35 an ounce of gold, and they would print at that level of $35 an ounce of gold, and therefore they would keep the currency strong enough so that other currencies around the world could be based upon that currency. But now that currency has nothing in back of it, as of 1971, when Nixon had no other choice but take the country off the gold standard, had no other choice but to do it. Why was that? Because they were demanding the gold for the dollars were in circulation, and they can't cover it. So they had to stop pretending that they could, and that pretense was what they were being called on by Charles de Gaulle in France. And when he began, because he knew what was going on, too many dollars were circulating in Europe during the Marshall Plan. He knew those dollars could not be there, $35 an ounce. Not with those dollars circulating the plan was used to rebuild Europe with. He knew that could not be the case at the amount of printing that had been guaranteed, quote unquote, guaranteed, so governments guarantee anything. Government's word, not word, anything. Politicians speak on. Don't make racial, as the Native Americans did. They only spoke to a certain group. They didn't speak the problem. White men speak with forked tongue. They're speaking to the politicians. They weren't speaking to the Buffalo Soldiers, quote unquote. And there were no, at that time, on the national level, there were no black politicians until the so-called Civil War came to a close. And you won't like me saying this, but when they were found on the national level, they were Republican members of the Republican Party. Not that I'm selling anything they said, and not that I'm selling anything that they are trying to get me to get you by. They're not worth anything either. And we might as well stop pretending they are. Neither party has your interest at heart. And both parties are dangerous, but not dangerous to the same extent. The pretenses are different with the two parties, but both of the parties are dangerous to the well-being of the United States. Inflation is not transitory. It is ongoing. In fact, I can tell people's age by whether or not they walk by pennies and pick it up and don't pick it up. I see somebody walking by a penny and then realizing it's down there and stop to pick it up, I know automatically they are in the time zone that I'm in terms of birth. And that is to say that when a penny had purchasing power, I can remember when if I had a dime, there was a pop, which cost 6 cents, and I could buy 8 cookies. We call them 2 for penny cookies. So by the time, if I got a dime, I had lunch. A pop, 20-ounce pop, and 8 cookies. Now you get two cookies for $1, because 98% of the purchasing power has been taken out of the dollar. The dollar is now worth about 2 cents, or what it was worth when I was coming up, and that's why I pick up pennies. I can remember. Okay, I brought a lot of information I want to get to today and didn't get around to it. I'll get to it next week. Don't worry about it. Okay, I want you to continue to listen to the program here at 2 o'clock on Mondays, and we'll try to do some catch up again next week. Until next week, I want you to follow your dream. If you don't follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.